The KU View podcast starts in 3, 2, 1.
We're off. Welcome to episode 1 of the KU View podcast. I'm Cameron. I have Andrew and Aden along with me.
What's up? What's going on, world?
And we're going to talk about sports.
KU sports.
KU sports specifically. We may occasionally cover, other sports like the Royals or...
Yeah.
That's probably going to be
like
it.
KU.
We may or may not have an NBA edition coming up when we get further into the playoffs when there's, no more KU news going on. But
right, for sure.
For the most part, we will be covering KU sports.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. First off, a couple hours ago, Josh Jackson officially declared for the draft.
Finally.
Oh, man, I'm so surprised.
He signed an agent. It is now impossible for Josh Jackson to return to the University of Kansas, to the disappointment of many. We will never see Josh Jackson again in a KU jersey.
Darn.
It's disappointing. No one expected him at all to come back next year. That's
No,
not,
absolutely
no
not.
one was
No.
holding their breath for it.
Top 3 lotto pick no matter what. No reason for him to stay.
4 days ago, I gave it 0% chance, but over the last 4 days, I just had more and more every day been thinking, it was a possibility, but
But reality set in.
that got absolutely crushed this morning.
Absolutely.
And Josh Jackson is gone for good. Now, it's very, very clear that he's one of the better one-and-dones we've had come through.
I'd say
Starting with, who was the first? Xavier Henry? Xavier and then Josh Selby.
I skip over Selby. I just
Oh,
skip him entirely.
come on.
him and Diallo don't even count.
Selby at least won a game.
Selby won. He won that USC game.
He also had the excuse of a groin injury that held him back a lot of the season. Although he's done absolutely nothing in the NBA. I think he played for the Grizzlies for a couple weeks.
A couple weeks.
Yeah,
That's
I totally
more than
remember
I've
that.
played. I'll give him that.
Yeah, I struggle to play rec basketball, so a couple weeks in the NBA isn't terrible. The biggest question, though, is he a better one-and-done than Andrew Wiggins?
Josh Jackson?
Josh Jackson versus Andrew Wiggins. Who do you think is a better one-and-done?
I think, are we talking, obviously we don't know where he's going in the draft or anything yet, and we can discuss more as his career progresses. But
Time
I think
at KU.
At Kansas, yeah, absolutely.
You think he was better than Wiggins?
Absolutely.
I don't know. Maybe it's just I have fond memories of Wiggins when he was here, but I think I'm going to have to give him it. Josh had a fantastic year last year, or this year. I don't know. I guess it just comes down to it. I think Wiggins was a better outside shooter, definitely a better free throw shooter, and to me, he was just more fun to watch. Nothing against Josh.
I don't know if I agree with more fun. I don't think there was anything more fun than watching that Mason to Jackson alley-oop combo that they loved so much. That was an incredible duo.
Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I felt like every KU game that I either went to or watched, Josh Jackson missed the dunk.
He missed a dunk. Go back and look at
Or
every
15
single
free throws.
I'm not saying there's
free throws
anything
aside.
wrong
Look
with
at
it.
every single one of those dunks.
I know
A majority of them he got fouled on, which we got nothing from his free throws, obviously. But
I'm just saying it's nothing bad. It's not like a gimme shot. They're contested. It's just that eventually it just almost turned into like a drinking game. Just like, hey, is he gonna miss one today?
he better not have been playing drinking games.
With apple juice, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, while at KU, Andrew Wiggins, stat-wise, averaged 17.1 points a game, 1.5 assists, and shot 44%. Josh Jackson shot...
Hold for dramatic effect.
Josh Jackson shot 51%, averaged 16.3 points, 7.4 rebounds, and 3 assists. So aside from points, Jackson had better everything.
Yes.
And free throws. Wiggins had better free throws.
Yeah.
And Wiggins only
Josh
averaged...
was on a better team, though, too, I'd argue.
You could give him that. You also... I don't know. That's a really...
I'll remember Josh more.
It's tough to compare.
Well, yeah, I'll remember Josh more just because we were here
I think
when
that...
he played.
Yeah, I had a class with Josh, too.
I think the biggest thing that makes a difference for me between Jackson and Wiggins, and for the record, I'm going to say I think Josh was a little bit better, was Wiggins on the team he was on, he was the guy.
Yeah.
He was the go-to.
Josh
And
wasn't even
and the
guy.
stats he had Jackson had 2 better players on the team with him, I'd argue, in Graham and Mason, and he still found a way to be an absolute star.
Yeah, absolutely.
With 2 experienced guards ahead of him. And his ability to come in as a shooting guard and end up playing a 4 most of the season.
That's not.
I'd also argue that Josh was better defensively.
No, yeah, no question. Josh Jackson, he's a defensive beast.
So
he gets out there. He's not afraid to go up and block shots.
We'll see what happens in the NBA if Jackson ends up being a superstar in the NBA or if he...
I mean, top 3 pick, do we think?
Top 3 pick.
I think he goes number 3.
I think he'll end up with the Suns.
The Suns. We'll wait until after the lottery when that happens.
I think he'll go to Phoenix since he couldn't do it during the season.
First hot take.
Oh,
no matter where they are in the draft order, he'll go to Phoenix.
Phoenix could drop somehow. They'll make a really bad trade. Drops like the 26th pick. He'll still go to Phoenix.
He'll go to Phoenix.
He will always end up in Phoenix. All right. Speaking of people leaving for the draft or staying for the draft, we all know Devonte Graham announced that he was going to stay for his senior year. Were either of you guys surprised by that?
I was surprised he didn't test, like Coach said, but
I don't know. I wasn't a whole lot surprised, to be honest. It seemed like he has a good time here.
yeah,
He
really
has something to finish next season.
absolutely.
And dare I say, he wants to have that Frank Mason senior season.
Never going to happen. I love Devonte Graham, but no one will ever have the season that Frank Mason had.
He wants the Frank Mason-esque season. Maybe it's not the exact same. He just wants to be.
He won't
that
average
guy.
20 and 5. He'll average 19 and 4.
Oh no.
Yep, not quite Frank. I personally thought that Devonte was going to stay the whole time. I didn't see him leaving at all. There's no way he would. I don't see Devonte getting placed on a team where he would stay if he left for the draft right now.
Yeah.
I think he has nothing but the ability to improve his draft stock by staying one more season. Plus, after that game against Oregon, he had to have had a bad taste in his mouth that he wanted to wash out.
Yeah, and again, I'm a little surprised that it didn't at least test because he could have been, he could have been a solid second-round pick. And again, that's a tough thing when you're staring that in the face. All that money or whatever. Just being on an NBA team, getting paid to play basketball. But I'm sure glad he stayed, and I wasn't totally surprised by it, but I was definitely surprised he didn't test.
Devonte Graham.
But he wants to get the one thing that Frank didn't.
Devonte Graham will be 2018 NCAA tournament MVP.
Okay.
Hot take
number two.
Hot take number 2. So, with Devonte staying, does Trevin Duvall have a chance of coming here? Especially now that Josh Jackson's gone. Now that we know for sure that Josh Jackson's gone, do you think Trevin Duvall shows up in Lawrence, Kansas?
Absolutely. He is a Duke Blue Devil.
You think Trevin Duvall is going to go to Duke?
He is going to Duke. 100% sure.
Aden.
Give me your reasoning behind that. I think that Trevin Duvall has a really good chance of coming to KU because he's number 1 and there's no number 1 on the team right now. There's a jersey number open for him.
Never count out Coach K. He's a salesman. Duke's unloading some players this year to the draft. He'll be an instant starter at point guard.
Will he be, though?
He will. He will.
Will he really?
To be fair, he'll probably be an instant starter on any team he comes to. He comes to KU, he goes to Duke, he goes to some third party, instant starter, one and done, lottery pick the next year. Quote unquote the next John Wall, some say.
The next John Wall will be in Lawrence, Kansas.
I agree.
Or Seton Hall. I really think he could end up at Seton Hall.
Seton Hall over Duke.
That would be the dream, though.
How do you turn down Kansas?
You play for where you're from with your absolute best friend of all time. How do you... That's a compelling argument. Obviously there's something there for him if Seton Hall is still in the running along with KU Duke. If you have Kansas, Duke, and Seton Hall, obviously there's a big, strong appeal there.
Well, it's kind of like when Wiggins was deciding. He had Florida State on one of his top picks just on location and family history with the area.
And then he had Kansas and Kentucky. And it came
Who all from Duke is going to the draft that he could replace? Luke Kennard? Is he the only guard leaving Duke?
Luke Kennard. And
Grayson Allen's staying, isn't he?
Grayson Allen is staying.
And then they've got Matt Jones and Frank Jackson.
I'm just saying, this guy decides to go to Duke. He is an instant starter. K will move other people around.
K?
Is he not an instant starter if he comes here?
He is an instant starter.
Trevin Duvall shows up
wherever he goes.
He'll start wherever he goes. Problem is, what do you do with your lineup when Trevin Duvall shows up?
What do you do when you have Frank Mason and Devonte Graham are there? It's the same thing.
Is it, though? Because now Bill Self has the personnel to move back to his preferred 3-guard, 2-big lineup. So now you're overloading the guards.
Yeah, but I don't think he would complain if Duvall came.
Can we still do that if
he
we're
could
a
manage.
guard-heavy team again, though?
I think if Duvall comes, Speed's gone for sure.
I can see
Because
that.
he's testing. But if Duvall comes, you've got... Who would be your starting guards?
Graham, Duvall.
Graham, Duvall, Newman? Graham, Duvall, Vic? You have a possibility of Graham, Duvall, Spee?
I'll give the slot to Newman at this point,
Yeah.
just early.
I like any of
You'll
those
give it to
honestly.
Newman?
though.
Give it to Newman.
It's just... That's
Vic
really
still
hard
comes off the bench.
to tell and decide what you want to do with it.
Yeah.
Who do you go for your 2 bigs, then?
I got Preston and Azubuike.
Preston, Azubuike. I could see that later on in the season. I think at the beginning of the season, though, it'll be Azubuike and Colby, simply to see which one starts, which one will be better at the 5.
And ease
And
Preston
once the
into
2 of
starting
them
role.
and ease Preston into it, once the 2 of them have determined which one will be better and which one will be the starter at 5, eventually you'll have Preston move into the starting lineup. And I think later on in the season, we're going to see a lot more out of Mitch Lightfoot. This guy, I think people forget a lot about. He'll be bigger, he'll be stronger, and he'll be a little bit more talented. He'll get more playing time.
He will. He'll get about. I'll give him about 10 minutes a game.
That's
Max.
it?
Yeah, 10 minutes a
Mitch,
game.
like 10 a game.
10 a game.
Say later in the season you're splitting Azubuike and Colby at center. They're splitting minutes. You're saying Billy Preston's going to play 30 at the 4?
Possibly.
30 a game.
It's not unheard of.
It's not.
I'm just saying.
It's
he
not
gets in
unheard
foul
of,
trouble, Mitch comes in, gets some minutes.
I think Mitch will go 15 to 20.
Mm.
I think, at least for a while. It might change later on down the stretch of the season when you get late into the tough conference games / tournament when you want your best people in at all times. But I think we'll see a lot more of Mitch Lightfoot this year.
All right.
That's my professional opinion that I get paid to speak of. All right then. So let's move on from basketball to football. Saturday was the annual spring game. Team Jayhawks beat Team KU 14-7. We saw 2 better quarterbacks than KU's had in a while go at it. Peyton Bender versus Carter Stanley.
No doubt.
What did you guys see that you liked about the matchup in this year's spring game?
If this was a starting out of which quarterback looks like the better or the starter, I'd say it's about dead even right now.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I say Montel Cozart will somehow still start.
The dark horse in the race.
He's been doing it for about 6 seasons now. Montel Cozart is never out of it for some reason.
Never count out Cozart.
Cozart is coming. Who do you think? Bender or Stanley?
They were neck and neck based on the way they played in the spring game. And
who would you like to see?
Who would I like to see? I'd like to see Stanley just because he had
Stanley.
the experience of a few tough conference games and one that he was able to show that KU was able to win one of those tough conference games, even if it was at home. In Texas, had a bad end of their year, but he showed that he's got the ability to do that, and that's the biggest thing for young teams like this that haven't been winning a lot. That's knowing how to win in the Big 12 is a huge key to success, I think.
Okay, the biggest key to winning in the Big 12 is being able to score, though. Who do you think, after watching, will be able to move the ball downfield and score? Because KU runs an air raid offense.
Again, it's neck and neck, man.
It's not even this game, but the watching the few games that Carter played last year, their passing offense just took off. I don't want to say it was like it wasn't out there. Like they were still like kind of a run first type of offense, but with Stanley at quarterback, the passing game took off.
Let's talk some stats. For Team Jayhawks, Peyton Bender was 11 of 15 with 143 yards, 2 touchdowns. His longest pass was 28 yards and he got sacked twice. Carter Stanley went 13 of 24 with 114 yards and 4 sacks.
He also had nobody on offense.
Less impressive stats. You got to look, though. Tyreek Starks threw 2 passes for Team Jayhawks. Both of them were incomplete. He threw 2 passes for Team KU, though. He went 2 of 2 for 55 yards and their only touchdown.
It's a spring game.
It is a spring game, but you can't
how
say.
much do you want to look into this? Like,
I'm not putting too much.
It wasn't just like the starting defense out there. There was some.
I know, but it was the same people that Stanley was going against, and Tyreek Starks scored in 2 plays. Stanley had the rest of it.
Don't forget the play though. There was one in left corner of the end zone that Stanley should have had a touchdown on. That wasn't his fault. It was a beautiful. He was rolling left and threw it off balance, and it was a beautiful pass.
Kurt Johnson made a hell of a catch in the back of the end zone. He stepped out of bounds. It would have gotten called back for a holding anyways. There was also a deep play downfield in the third or fourth quarter to Chase Harrell that got batted down. There was also to Chase Harrell in the first quarter a pass in the end zone that just hit him in the hands. Also, you have to look at, again, Bender's 2 touchdowns. One of them was a little dump-off screen pass to Steven Sims, who got a great block from Quiv and did the rest, got in the end zone himself. And then the other one was just a 6-yard pass across the middle to Dalen Charlotte. It was thrown into some coverage. It was a nice thrown ball, but it wasn't. But watching the 2 in warm-ups, the other thing I noticed was Bender downfield had a really nice touch on his passes. And again, it's warm-ups, it's a spring game, I get that. But ball don't lie.
I mean, if you want to look at just straight arm strength, then Bender's your guy. But
Carter Stanley, though, he doesn't lack that capability, though. Don't forget that pass to Quiv in the K-State game.
He does.
98-yard touchdown.
He threw that out of the end zone. It went for a touchdown. It was a well-thrown ball. Both of them are very talented. I'm really interested to see what happens. I just really, really don't want to see another season where we are switching 2 quarterbacks because someone can't make up their mind on who should start.
Well, that's more than just a coaching thing, though. The reason they do that is because each quarterback hasn't presented like a reason why they should be the long-term starter.
No, I know.
Hopefully we'll get that.
I know, but when you are switching guys in and out, that leaves absolutely no room to build confidence because you start 2 games and then you get benched. That's not going to that's not going to help your confidence. It's just going to hurt it. You were like, okay, I'm doing okay, and the next thing you know, you're like Ryan Willis, and you start 3 games, almost beat TCU, and then you don't play again the rest of the year.
Yeah.
You got to look at some point that is a coaching decision. The coach needs to make up their mind. I don't know whether it's going to be Beatty that makes that call or it's going to be Meacham or who. Someone has got to make that decision. Need to stick with them. Either one, I think, at this point would be a good candidate. I'm curious to see who they go with. I know we've still got a lot of time left until the season to determine that.
So would you mind if, like, the first 1 or 2 games of the season they flip-flop just to make sure?
I don't want that.
You don't want it even
against one guy.
Opponents at the
one
guy.
Of the season. At the beginning of the season, first game of the season.
Those are they're basically scrimmage games.
First game against SEMO. That's the only one that you should have that should be guaranteed win. It's the only one. If one of them starts and plays 3 quarters and then the other one comes in and plays the 4th, I wouldn't mind that. Unless it's a close game.
See, that's not even a competition. That's just garbage time at that point, just coming in the 4th.
I don't care. You don't want to be flip-flopping because that shows you're second-guessing yourself, in my opinion. And then the second game, Central Michigan, it's not going to be a walk-in-the-park scrimmage game. That one is going to be a legit competition, and if you don't have your mind made up on a guy who's going to run your offense and be able to do it consistently, you're looking at real trouble. And then once you get through that, you have at Ohio, which won't be easy either, and then you get thrown.
Yeah, you have to have your mind made up.
You get thrown right into conference.
So what if just say Carter Stanley's a starter coming into the year, and we go 1-1, and he plays like trash in the second game?
Okay.
What would you think then about switching quarterbacks?
Stick with him. If he does it again, then you look somewhere else.
Okay.
But everybody has an off game. You can't just be like if he has a really good first game and then a not so well second game, you can be ready during that second Ohio game. If he's clearly having problems, then you go ahead and make the switch. But if you're going to make that switch, you better be ready to stick with it. Don't play Bender the rest of that game and then go straight back to Stanley. That's just how I feel in the situation, though.
I can see that.
All right. Like, no one likes the flip-flops, but there are teams who have, I don't want to say they've thrived in it, but they've done well. Was it Alabama last year or the year before that? They did a flip-flop at quarterback for the majority of their season. And I know that KU is not Alabama.
KU is not quite Alabama. Right now. They will be Alabama soon. 2018 college football playoffs, you'll see KU in there.
Oh, jeez.
I'm calling it right now.
That's the hottest take of the year right there.
KU football will make a Final Four before KU basketball.
Oh.
I do not agree with the statements of Cameron.
Ooh.
Just throwing that out there.
That's hurting me a little bit. You need to...
You are a separate entity in this situation.
Hey. Okay. All right. We're getting a little hurtful now. So, anything else you noticed in the spring game that you did or did not like? Anything else that stuck out?
Mike Lee is balling out of his
Mike Lee.
mind.
Okay. This is actually something I want to talk about. Mike Lee is a very good player. I expect to see him on Sundays. He walked in last year as a freshman that got no playing time at the beginning of the year, and by the end of the season, believe me, everyone knew who Mike Lee was. He had the game-winning interception against Texas. He forced a fumble in that game. He has had some crazy big hits that we've all seen, the replays, one at Texas Tech, one at K-State. He had one against Oklahoma State here at home. Mike Lee is going to be a good player, and we saw that again Saturday during the spring game.
He takes no prisoners, as seen from the spring game.
He had two very jarring hits on wide receiver Ryan Shadler. Both of them, Shadler took a little bit of time to get up from. This man just finished abdominal surgery.
And is probably on the
and sat out
protocol.
an entire year, and most likely is on concussion protocol. What do you think of Mike Lee's hits on Ryan Shadler? Were they dirty or were they not dirty?
They were not dirty.
The first one could have been called targeting. If you look at
it
it, the crown
vicious.
of his helmet hit the bottom of Shadler's face.
It was vicious.
First one could have been called.
I applaud that from a defensive back.
I am fine with that any
just the
time if it's
you
a game.
See that in your players.
But why would you? But you gotta think time and place. You don't want to hurt your receivers.
Some guys just can't turn it off once they get on the field. It's game time.
He said after the spring game he realized there was nobody else there to make a play,
so he ran to his family.
He did. He ran full speed at him, and that's how Mike Lee plays football. He goes absolutely full speed until he hits somebody.
I don't mind it.
You don't think it's a little dangerous?
I mean, it's a little much, but like Aden said, it's once you're in a game situation like that, it's really hard to turn it off, especially when you're as hard a hitter as he is.
It is.
I understand your point, but
it's part of being young. Also, you got to think he's going to be a sophomore next year, but he is a year younger than the rest of them. He's the age of a freshman, so some more control will come with age. Sure. What about the defensive line? Dorrance Armstrong, Daniel Wise, anything there?
Armstrong's a beast.
He's going to be good. He's going to be fun to watch.
We all know.
I'm hoping we get him for 2 seasons, but
we'll see.
If he blows up this year, people might start talking. Is he going to go in the draft? Also, receivers. Anything out of the receivers?
My big thing is the receivers and the running backs. That's my big takeaway, honestly, from the game. We got some studs, I think. We're going to be good on offense. The key is the offensive line, kind of as it always has been in the past few years.
The offensive line is getting bigger. They're getting bigger. They're getting better. They will be able to protect the quarterback so that hopefully we can go downfield. Don't have to just run screen passes every time because the throw has to get out so quick that nobody can get downfield.
Yeah, and we got a few guys that can do it too. Dalen Charlotte looks like a wide receiver.
Dalen Charlotte
he
looks like a man that played for Alabama.
He sure does.
He looks like someone that Nick Saban would want on his team. He made a hell of a grab over on the sideline that I didn't think it was in at first.
That catch was nuts.
What happened was Bender threw it to the right side of the field, lobbed it up there, and Dalen Charlotte went up and grabbed it, and on his way down had the awareness and control to just tap a foot to the sideline. Got it inbound by a couple inches. They reviewed it. They saw the replay up on the scoreboard and reversed the call. At first, it was out of bounds. Dalen Charlotte also had a touchdown in there. He looks like he could be some fun. He could make a lot of noise this year.
He could be the star of the offense.
He's a little bit bigger. He's not quite as quick as Sims and Quiv, I'm going to say, but he's definitely fast.
I couldn't help but notice the lack of use of LaQuiviante Gonzalez in the spring game. He had 1 catch.
1 catch for 9 yards on a screen pass, and he had 1 rush for -1 yards. LaQuiviante Gonzalez was kind of absent.
I'm not reading too much into it.
Again,
scrimmage that was 14-7.
Again,
there was not very
scrimmage, but that's the time where your star players should shine. They should be that much better. And it's not even. It wasn't even his fault.
I didn't see anything wrong with him.
I didn't see anything wrong with him. It was just they didn't use him, which I found strange because he was such a pivotal part of the offense last year that they didn't use him more often. That was weird to me.
And we've talked about this the other day, but on at least that 1 screen pass, they threw the screen to Sims, and they just have Quiv as a blocker, and that's not something that Quiv does. He's not the blocking wide receiver. He's the guy who takes the screen.
Yeah.
He's the small guy with speed. He's not a blocker.
You have bigger receivers to put on the outside to block. Don't use your smallest guy. However, Quiv did on Sims' touchdown. He was the lead blocker for that, and he had a nice block to open up a lane for Sims to go get that touchdown. So I know it's just a spring game. I know it's just a scrimmage, but it is your first look at everything that's going on. And it is important to look at things that happen and notice patterns because, like I said earlier, it was nice to see a spring game that was 14-7 because it was competitive and not because they were just shit.
Yeah.
Because they were so bad they couldn't do anything.
With the roster as it is now, I think it's a pretty optimistic next few years for KU football, a lot more than it's been in the past.
We're definitely seeing improvements all around.
KU
Absolutely.
football.
This is not a team that's going to... I mean, you can safely say they're going to win 2 games, but we'll get into our predictions later. But
we will get into predictions in the next episode of the KU View podcast. We will also talk a little bit about Sviatoslav Mikhailuk and his NBA decision. Depending on what that ends up being, I'm sure there will be more stuff to talk about. I think that's about going to do it for us here, though.
It's a wrap on episode 1.
The KU View
podcast,
is, episode 1. Follow us on Twitter at the KU View. We love interactions. Feel free to tweet at us anytime.
Absolutely.
And
you're going to be seeing a lot more of us. So
Bruce Weber should have been fired. Kentucky sucks.
There it is. Good
Missouri
ending.
will not be as good as KU, despite what they may think because of their 1 or 2 recruits.
Keep it tuned in, guys. Rock Chalk.
Once again, I'm Cameron.
I'm Andrew.
And Aden.
And thank you for listening to the KU View podcast.
This has been the KU View podcast.